Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you are listening to Sounds, the show where art, culture, and technology intersect. Today, we are going to dive into a thought provoking exploration of life, death, and digital immortality with Hans Block and Moritz Riesewieck, the visionary directors behind the groundbreaking documentary Eternal You. Their film examines the rapid rise of AI driven technologies designed to preserve the essence of human life after death. From voice bots to virtual reality reunions, Eternal You raises pressing ethical questions about grief, memory, and the commercialization of digital immortality. Are these advancements fulfilling an age old human yearning for connection, or are they dangerous experiments with our humanity? You'll find out if you watch this film. Hans, Moritz, thank you so much for joining us on Sounds.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I should say that this film is getting a lot of attention. It premiered at Sundance, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, tell me a little bit about how the two of you decided to embark on this documentary. What interested you about the subject, and how did the film come to be?
I think the question that interests us in all our work is how the concepts of humanity and society have changed in the digital age. And with the film Eternal You, the starting point was actually in 2018. We discovered a website stating, "Become virtually immortal." And what initially seemed like a cheap scam soon turned out to be a serious tech trend. And we visit the founder behind that webpage in Romania, and he told us that he's actually working on the idea to collect all the digital data which we leave behind on our digital devices every day, and that he's working on creating a digital avatar, a digital representation of a person which lives on after we pass away. And of course, that was so interesting for us on many, many levels. And we thought the questions of how exactly does this technology work, or who are the people doing everything they can to become digitally immortal, there were so many questions for us that we started to research on that topic and started to film.
So, at what point did you start filming, and what were some of the first things that you filmed?
Yeah, that was actually already the starting point in 2018 in Romania. And back then, the technology wasn't that far developed, and we had to wait for a few more years. We still observed other examples of startups popping up, but it took a while until we found the first really promising examples of AI in play, of really encounters between living human beings and the simulations of the deceased. And in some cases, we even were there when there were talks between the true human beings and their digital clones themselves. So yeah, we traveled to the US, to Canada, but then also to South Korea, to New Zealand, and partly to Europe, to find very, very diverse examples of actually the same dream.
It's amazing. For our listeners who have not seen the movie yet, maybe don't even know that this is being offered to people. Can you explain a little bit? Someone loses someone they know dies. What is being offered to them now? That some people just don't even realize in terms of AI.
I mean, there's different technologies and offerings out there. The very basic system is like a chat system, and you can imagine it like ChatGPT, but it's a personalized ChatGPT. So you can text with someone who passed away and have like a chat conversation. But there are also some companies involving a voice synthesis. That means that they use some recordings of the original voice, and they create an artificial voice which sounds like exactly the original voice. And then there are even more advanced services using also the visual image in order to create something like a deep fake or a digital avatar. And then you can imagine it
Hmm.
like being in a Skype call, in a Zoom call with someone who's not longer on Earth anymore.
One of the things that blew me away, and I thought this was going to be the main focus for a while, it seems that people who are doing the chatting with someone that they've lost, they're at first kind of blown away by how much the chat reminds them of the way that the person spoke and the kinds of things that they would talk about. But then at some point, knowing what probably was already fed into the system, they start to realize that they're bringing up things that they couldn't have known, and it's almost like magical. And they start to almost, it seemed like they started to wonder whether they're somehow communicating with their lost one through this AI. Can you explain this situation that some people encounter?
Mm. Yeah, it's actually fascinating to see like how much even people who are not prone to being naive or like being easily decepted can fall for this illusion. And we need to be clear, it is an illusion in the end. We don't believe in the fact that there is a true copy or a true soul of the deceased on the other side, but it can be really really good, this illusion, in the way that it can bring up anecdotes of the person. It can mimic the humor of this deceased person. It can combine names of friends with certain songs the living human being and the deceased have both listened to, and so on and so on. And in also kind of making good guesses based on the data set it's fed with, and working with probabilities, it can be really really give you the illusion that this is so much more than what is fed into. And uh, it's also it's a combination of our human nature, which is full of cognitive dissonances. We tend to have wishful thinking when we are really in a vulnerable situation, like having lost somebody we truly loved a lot. And then to have an AI which is really good in mimicking certain speech patterns and using words the deceased usually took in building sentences, that can be enough then to have, like, to truly give you the illusion that there is this exact copy of the deceased on the other side.
I was wondering, there are people today still that when they lose someone will go see a psychic and try and connect with their lost one. Some people believe in that sort of thing, other people do not. But do you find any kind of connection between what psychics do for people who have lost someone and what these new AI programs are doing?
I think it's more a question of how do we as society deal with the fact that someone passes.
Mm.
And what we found out while researching is that more and more people in the Western societies do not believe in religions anymore that strongly. And they do have the need that or they won't believe that after we pass away that there's nothing. And so there's something like a transcendental homelessness. And these tech companies, they provide a secular story of salvation, so to say. So they have a different narrative that we have something which lives on after we pass away. And that's very, very strong, and that's all a question of believing. And some of the persons we met, they find like a different way in dealing with the fact that life is finite.
I was really
And
blown.
maybe if I can
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
if I
sorry.
can only add one thing, maybe compared compared to these psyches. Oh, maybe how can I describe? I think that we have been used as societies to all kinds of mediums you mentioned, and with these mediums, it's kind of this was a certain group of people like using their services, and there was a specific um, mm, it wasn't taken very serious, this business, so to say. And with AI, it's different. Like AI has this aura of being objective, of being based on numbers and on data, and so the whole framework for this new technology and business is different. And so when people now turn to this new entity of AI, and hope that this magical new entity can kind of capture the soul of a loved one. Um, for a lot of people, this is so much more deceptive than going to a medium.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do. One of the things that really struck me is that people will pay. I don't know how it works exactly. A fee to visit or chat with someone that they lost, and maybe they have a good experience, and they talk and they have a meaningful, time with this person. But then eventually
Mhm.
they have to make the decision whether to stop or not. And I never really thought about it, but your film raises the issue that if someone then doesn't pay anymore, it's almost like that person's dying again. So that these companies are going to have this ability to kind of hold the life of your lost ones um, at their disposal, and you're going to have to just keep on paying them at some point. Um, that's really
Mm.
disturbing in a lot of ways. Can you explain a little bit about how that works and some of the issues?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is something like a moral obligation to continue talk to a deceased person, because if you would stop using the service, then it feels like the person is dying for the second time. And that's a very strong mechanism these or some of the companies are using. And talking about the way they handle these services, this is very different. Some of the services, they have like a Netflix subscription, and you pay
Right.
a certain amount every month in order to keep running. Some of the services, they use like a different amount of credits, like you have like yeah, 2,000 words or something like that. And if you're out of the words, then you need to pay again in order to continue the conversation. So there are different models in order to handling the payment. But of course, most of the people we met in our research, for most of them, it was like I will just use it once, and then I stop talking, because they have a last question. They want to say goodbye because they hadn't the chance to say proper goodbye to a deceased person. And then very easily they can fall into a trap and become more and more addicted, because these machines are sometimes engineered in that way that they still want to continue talking. They 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 they, they hold you active in a way, and that's a serious danger when you start using these services.
This film raises all kinds of ethical issues. Already, people are starting to wonder where AI is going. But in this particular area, there's very specific dangers. One of the things that I never even imagined would happen, and I don't want to give it completely away, is one assumes when you're talking to someone that you lost that it's going to be pleasant. But what you discovered was that sometimes these chats will go in a dark place that people don't expect and can actually lead to more distress about what's happened to the person that they lost. Can you explain a little bit about how these chats are really not predictable, and they're not controlled allegedly, and how sometimes they can go to places that people don't actually even like.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe I can start, and Hans can add an example then. Um, like it's generative AI, so this AI cannot be fully predicted. Like it's not that every sentence it's spitting out is has been recorded somewhere or has been filled in by a human being, but it's generating its responses on the run, so to say, based on the data it's fed with. So that means that it's kind of a black box, if you will. So, and it works with probabilities. So based on the data and based on the common sense, like on the full data set of human chats it's based on, it actually calculates what would be a good response. And so if you mention certain, or if you use a certain language, or if you bring up certain names it's connecting with, or it's misinterpreting, or it's getting the context wrong, then it can give a very harmful response. It can hallucinate, if you want to use this human term. So it can bring up stuff which doesn't have to do with the human being it's simulating, but much more with like a misunderstanding, much more with a conflict it's mimicking, or yeah, it can really be irritating in its responses, and it can then cause a lot of harm, because you need to take into account these are people who are in a particularly vulnerable situation. They are grieving. They are hoping for, in a lot of cases, the very last conversation they didn't get the chance to have with the deceased. And so, of course, they are very sensitive and hope for a good conversation. And if then the digital clone of a loved one turns out to be racist, or turns out to be yeah, full of hatred, or so on, then of course it can be not only frustrating but really disturbing.
Wow. And did you also want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's one case which is also presented in our film. We met a young woman based in New York, and she's a Christian, and she started to talk to a deceased friend, and of course for her it was really important that she was sure that the deceased friend is in a good place wherever he is. And then it turned out in one of the conversation that the AI, the simulation of the friend, said that he's actually in hell. And of course, which sounds a bit funny for me, example, or for many other people, for her it was a very disturbing moment, and it was in a way life changing for her, and she was really yeah, irritated, and she was not in peace, and she didn't found closure, and she didn't found a very peaceful last moment to talk to him. It was the other way around, and she's not the only one experienced something like that, and that's one of the facts we are, or one of the questions we are raising in our film. That of course the users of these technologies, these are vulnerable people. They are in deep grief. They're very emotional in that moment, and of course, even a slight mistake or even something very small can have a big effect on someone's life.
And it's also brought up in the film that people designing these programs also have their own set of ethics, such as that some don't believe that they should in any way censor what these chats might deliver in terms of the subject matter. That if someone says something racist because that's in their past, it's not for them to clean up their act. Is that correct? that some of these programs will not alter the essence of who some of these people are that they're supposed to be representing?
Yeah, there's this one statement by Justin Harrison, the founder of You Only Virtual, in our film, and he argues that actually they as a company, they want to let the AI do its thing, which for him means that they if he I think he says something like, if somebody was um, had a bad character during lifetime, they want to keep this bad character also for his digital clone, his or her.
Mm,
Um, and this like is based on this idea that the algorithm, or that the AI is somehow objective, and that it's kind of transmitting a truth, and that it can capture the true self of somebody just based on the data it's fed with. And of course, we are questioning this idea because whenever we have to do with AI, it's designed in a certain way. It follows certain rules. It follows a certain idea of what a good conversation is, or what is making traffic, if you will. So,
yeah.
and with giving these incentives into the AI, you are influencing a lot, like what it spits out, and so it can't be uh, the one and only truth any longer. And so um, of course there isn't something like a true self anybody of us has. So we are full of different selves, and we behave completely differently, dependent on who we have to deal with. And so yeah, and as it's a generative AI we are talking about, it can also then develop further and get into stuff which has not at all to do with the living being it's based on. And these are just a few examples of how questionable this idea of just letting the AI do its thing is.
This is really, this is profound stuff. I was kind of blown away by this film. I was doing another interview last week, and it was all about these unexplained flying objects and UFOs and stuff. And I was kind of surprised in that conversation that that people were kind of saying that maybe some people are afraid to reveal, at least in the past, maybe they were afraid to reveal things that they knew about these subjects because the population couldn't handle it, and that it would, I don't know if this is right, but this is just what someone was saying, that it would blow their minds and their belief systems and religions would be called into question. And
Hmm.
and then therefore everything, the whole basis for life would be disrupted. Um, so that was one discussion.
Hmm.
But then I was thinking of the same thing when I was watching your film. I mean, you guys kind of raised the issue that this technology now is offering. You can use the terminology better than I can. Is going to be offering. It's already starting to offer this other concept of life after death, and it seems that for some people it's going to be replacing the traditional concept of what life after death
Hmm.
is. And that is, like I said earlier, it's profound. I mean, this is going to change everything if enough people start to believe in this sort of thing. Can you explain the implications of how this could majorly start to change people's views of reality and also life after death?
Yeah, maybe I can start. Maybe Moritz, you add something. I think the big thing is that behind every great technological promise, there's always a human need to be satisfied in a way. And when we talk about these new services and these new technologies, maybe it says something about us humans as well, and about our societies. And what we found out, that there are millions of people out there which are very, very lonely. In Western societies, we have a big loneliness crisis, and people die on their own, alone, and people grieve on their own, very, very, very much alone. And and there's no cultural event, there's no tradition anymore how we deal with the fact that life is finite, and it is very, very painful, and is very, very hard to accept that someone you really loved is not here anymore. And of course, these technologies, they created a new narrative. They filled the gap which is missing in societies. And of course, we need to reflect on our culture in a way.
Mm.
And what do the two of you think of what you've seen so far? You made this movie, but what are your personal feelings about these businesses, about the people who are using them, and is this something that the two of you would use yourselves or not?
Yeah, we felt like it's just the beginning mm, of a new emerging industry, and we see the first examples, the first experiments in this field, and we were mainly fascinated um, by these experiments. But of course, we need to take into account that these are experiments on the open heart of people, and so um, as much as we could understand the reasons why people wished for maybe the last conversation they didn't get the chance to have, and they wished for a meaningful conversation with the simulation of the dead, we also felt that it's very risky to have this, because even if you only want to try it out and maybe play with it a little bit, it can easily start to become quite serious, and it can raise questions you didn't have before, and it can irritate you in ways you haven't imagined before. And what might start as harmless might then become quite disturbing. And so for ourselves, we decided we wouldn't want that, like to simulate our deceased loved ones, nor would we want that for ourselves to like stay alive, so to say, after our biological deaths, because like a fear we would have like about this scenario is that actually this generative AI could bring up so much stuff which we don't have any control over, and it could our avatars could like be fed with data we wouldn't want to be fed into our avatars, and it could like say things in our names we don't believe in maybe any longer after our death. That is also a problem, right? Like we are human beings, we make progress, like we're dependent on the circumstances we live in, like way after our own death the circumstances might be, and the societal knowledge might be much further, and then our avatars like remain the same, and keep like our presence in the same positions we are in now. But maybe who says that these are the positions we would like to have like a decades from now? So there are so many open questions which we didn't find answers to, so that we decide for ourselves we wouldn't want that. But we can truly understand people who look for a substitute for the traditional forms of mourning and remembrance.
And how are audiences typically reacting to the subject matter in this documentary? You've shown it now to a lot of different audiences.
I think in most of the cases, the first reaction is, "Wow, that's creepy. That's that's so annoying. That's nothing I would wish for. That's a dystopian future." And of course, we've been the same when we're starting research. But then after a while, we decided as documentary filmmakers to stay open, to stay curious, and to really explore what does it mean to have the wish that someone is coming back, or even try to understand what are the ideas of the makers behind those technologies. Why are they producing something like that?
It's incredible. I think this is one of the most important movies of the year. Where can people see this film?
Thank you.
Do you guys have a website or social media where people can learn more about where the film's playing?
I'm pretty sure it will be streamable on Canopy. So our distributor is Film Movement for the US.
And there's a VOD release on January 24, and you can stream the film on every big platform like Amazon.
This film is incredible. Where do you think this is going? Can you just give us one last glimpse, like beyond the film? Where do you think this is heading?
Yeah, that's just the beginning of an epoch where, like, we will get used to the fact that we can easily have a certain number of copies of ourselves, even during lifetime, and we will get used to talking to living beings, but also to non-living beings and avatars, which are mimicking true personalities who once lived in the past, and others who don't have any human basis at all. So yeah, I think the future will become messy. That's for sure.
I agree. Oh my goodness, Eternal You. Everyone has to see this movie. Eternal You raises so many important issues, and I think you're right about where this is heading. It's super complicated and it's a little distressing, but this movie is very good. Congratulations again, and I want to wish the two of you the best, and I hope that everyone out there listening checks out the film Eternal You. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.